Now, a lot of you responded very positively to one of my recent videos. It was about new Hammer Bro types that I would love to see in Super Mario. And in the comment section, so many of you said I should make a similar video, but about Zelda enemies. And so today we will do that, because we will be talking about the Darknuts, who are large knights equipped with heavy armor, a large sword, and a wide shield. In a lot of ways, they are very similar to the Iron Knuckle enemy, but there are a few differences between them, one being their appearance, of course. Seen most vividly during battles fought with them in Twilight Princess. In that game, along with the Wind Waker, they looked the best for sure, and the battle with them was fun and dynamic. They are certainly among my favorite enemies seen in the entire franchise, together with others like the Iron Knuckle. It's just really cool to have some sort of one-on-one fight with a character that looks like a fully fledged knight. I mean, come on, we've all fantasized about it ever since 3D Zelda became a thing. Now, we've seen them in a lot of Zelda games, and it's always fun to fight them. But I think Nintendo could create some more types that would make the games even more interesting. So today we will talk about 3 Darknut types that I would love to see in the Zelda franchise, especially in the Breath of the Wild sequel. Now, let's jump right in. Now, when I was thinking of new Darknut types, I also looked at old enemies that Nintendo had made. And after looking through some of them, I came up with quite a cool idea. Why not bring back the ball and chain troopers from A Link to the Past? These are Hyrulean guards that were brainwashed by Agadim and are under his control. And they attack by swinging their flail whenever you get close. But they will only swing it around periodically, allowing you to strike. Now, while the ball and chain was noted to be a powerful weapon among Ganon's forces used for sharp and powerful attacks that could deal a lot of damage, they were barely used by them in 3D titles. We see one boss that uses a ball and chain in Twilight Princess, but that fight is not very exciting. He doesn't do a whole lot aside from swinging it around and throwing it in your direction. So I bet we could improve on that concept. And the Darknut is perfect for this. Now he would look similar to the Darknut from Twilight Princess. Big, strong, and covered in thick plate armor. And when you fight him, he will use some clever little tricks to surprise you. Now obviously, one of his attacks would be swinging around the ball and chain, and when he gets the chance, he will throw it at you. But that's not all. Otherwise, the fight would be quite boring, to be honest. So he needs to have some attacks that will surprise you. And one of them could be a fast attack with his weapon. Instead of swinging it around, he immediately swings it right over his head, smacking it down on the ground, and hopefully hitting Link. And it would be especially cool if this attack would also create some sort of shockwave that can still deal some damage. This way he can also do some sort of unexpected and fast attack that will completely surprise the player. Now aside from this, you could also give him a fast attack where he throws a bolus, which is this thing. It's a bit similar to a ball and chain, and if it hits you, then you will take damage, or you're stunned for a short while, allowing the Darknut to strike. This is something we already see in the 2D games. Well, sort of, but we've never seen it in a 3D one. Now personally, I would love to see an enemy like this in Breath of the Wild 2, but I'm not sure if Nintendo would ever do something like this. You gotta remember, they are still incredibly limited by space. If they are swinging that ball and chain around, walls around them could interrupt their attack. So you can't use them in a whole lot of areas. To be honest, we already saw this problem in Twilight Princess during that boss fight. So they are limited to an extent. Alright, for our next Darknut type, we will talk about a version that's quite different. This one would be unlike any other seen in the game. A Darknut that uses a ranged weapon instead of a melee weapon of sorts. And it wouldn't be a bow, but actually a crossbow known as the Shuko Nu. This is a Chinese repeating crossbow that was invented quite a long time ago. This thing combined the actions of spanning the bow, placing the bolt, and shooting into a one-handed movement, allowing for a much higher fire rate than a normal crossbow. Now, the idea behind it is quite simple, and by just seeing it shoot, you can already understand how it works. And I would love it if a Darknut used a crossbow like this, but obviously a bigger and stronger version. And instead of wearing thick plate armor, he would wear something more light, looking a lot like the version seen in Twilight Princess without armor. And because of this, the Darknut is incredibly fast and agile. And that's exactly what we need for this new type, because when he attacks you, he will use his agility and speed combined with this incredibly fast shooting crossbow to take you down. He basically runs away from you, all while bombarding you with a ton of arrows, forcing you to pay attention and to go for a more defensive approach. And then when he runs out of arrows in his magazine, he must reload, giving the player a good opportunity to strike. Now personally, I think this enemy could also work really well as a boss, if you just add a couple of new abilities of course. For example, allowing him to switch to elemental or explosive arrows, although some limits would have to be set on that of course. Because as you can imagine, he would be way too powerful if he could shoot like 7 or 8 explosive arrows in less than 5 seconds. Now another thing that could give him is extra gadgets, like bombs. This would make it harder to get to him, because those things are in your way. A fight like this would be quite hectic, and you would have to react fast in order to block or dodge attacks, as well as attack when you get the chance. But I think we will never see something like this. Nintendo has never put crossbows in a main series Zelda title, so I think the chances are low. But we did see a fast-shooting crossbow in a spin-off game like Link's Crossbow Training, so who knows? Maybe one day Nintendo will take that idea and actually put it in a main series game. Now for our last new Darknut, I actually took inspiration from one that already exists. The Darknut from the Wind Waker. These wield big, thick-bladed swords and wear strong armor, and are one of the most difficult enemies in the entire game. However, what's really cool about them is that they can do some surprising stuff when they are weakened, because a Darknut without armor is still quite strong. And that's because he's way more agile without it, and will often dodge your sword attacks. And things become even crazier when he loses his melee weapons, because he can actually counterattack and perform martial art moves, which is insane. For example, he can do stuff like a flurry of karate chops or a spinning jump kick, which deal quite a bit of damage and knock you off your feet. And when I was younger, I really loved this. It was so cool that a Darknut was basically a trained ninja. So isn't it about time to create a Darknut that completely focuses on martial arts to beat the ever-living blob out of you? Well, I think the answer to that is yes. Now personally, I don't think he would need any type of weapon. The only thing that would be fitting is a quarterstaff, which is basically a big stick. But no weapon would be even better. And of course his attacks would consist of martial art moves. And I think stuff like Kung Fu and Karate would be a very good fit. They already added some moves from these after all, but normal karate chops and spinning jump kicks wouldn't be enough. They would need more attacks. Now one thing they could add that would work pretty well is something called Ashibara in Karate. This is some sort of foot sweep, which is useful for knocking an opponent off balance or to the ground. And as you can imagine, this would also do wonders when it comes to fighting Link, a person who tends to use melee weapons to take you out and uses a shield when he's not in a good position. So when he comes in to beat the hell out of a Darknut with his sword, the Darknut can use this kick to knock him off balance. It would also be very handy if Link has a shield and blocks most of his attacks, because something like this could 100% bypass the shield. Aside from this, there are many other kicks and attacks they could give this Darknut, and one that would also fit is a double kick. Something like this could trick the player a bit, because most won't expect 2 in a row, and so they block one of them and get hit by the other. They won't expect the second, and so it will hit them square in the face. And I can guarantee you a lot of people will fall for this. And this attack would also be different from their other kick. That way it all won't seem the same. Heck, Nintendo could even add something quite evil. Sometimes the Darknut will only do 1 kick, and other times he will do 2. This will confuse the player even more. Sure, it could be a bit annoying, but it would certainly make the fight very interesting. Now, these are my ideas for new Darknuts. One of the coolest enemies in the entire series, if I say so myself, and they certainly need some more love. Although personally, I think we won't really see any of these Darknuts, mostly because a lot of the concepts are quite foreign for the Zelda series or even Nintendo. However, I have to admit, at times Nintendo has done some weird stuff. So maybe they will reinvent the Darknuts at some point? But what do you think of the Darknut types I came up with? Let me know in the comments if you like them, and what you would change or add. And don't forget to tell me about your enemy ideas down below, as well as other videos I should do. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to hit the like button because that really helps me out. It helps me out a lot. You don't even know. Be sure to subscribe and click the bell button so you won't miss anything, and then I'll see you all in the next video.